A Kremlin spokesperson says it is premature to say whether Russia is close to agreeing to a peace plan in Ukraine. The Russian presidential press secretary also claims there are people in other countries, including the U.S., who will, quote, try to derail these peaceful developments. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Elizabeth Palmer has the latest on where things stand.
Both sides, the White House and the Kremlin, have now confirmed that Donald Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, will go to Moscow next Monday. And once there, it's very likely that he'll meet with President Vladimir Putin to present him with this multi-point proposal to end the war. But reacting to a suggestion that Ukraine and Russia have never been closer to a deal, President Putin's spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, poured cool, if not cold water on that. He said, wait, it's premature to say such a thing. Still, there is momentum. Even Ukraine, which was sidelined really as Moscow and Washington drew up the first draft of this agreement, is sounding cautiously optimistic. There's since been another draft with European input, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said it represented what he called the right approach. However, he also said there were still serious points of contention, and he wants to meet with President Trump personally to try and iron them out. Now, nobody knows for sure what the proposal says, although it's safe to assume that Ukraine will have to let Russia keep the territory that its military has taken in the war. That is almost 20% of Ukraine's landmass. And of course, nobody knows whether Russia will ultimately agree to this deal. After all, President Putin said as recently as June, we consider the Russian and Ukrainian peoples to be one. In this sense, all of Ukraine is ours. Well, this deal falls far short of giving him that. Back to you.
Liz Palmer, thank you. The Trump administration is facing backlash after Bloomberg obtained an audio recording of Special Envoy Steve Witkoff appearing to coach a top Putin aide on how to win over President Trump. Our Nancy Cortez asked the president about the report on Air Force One last night.
I haven't heard it, but I heard it was standard negotiation.
So you're not worried that he's too pro-Russian?
No, I think, look, this war could go on for years, and Russia's got a lot more people, got a lot more soldiers, you know. So I think if Ukraine can make a deal, it's a good thing. I think it's great for both.
CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang has more from Washington. I mean, to my ear, Weijia, it sounds like President Trump is once again saying Ukrainian President Zelensky doesn't have the cards. He said that in that explosive February Oval Office meeting. What more are you learning about this leaked call?
Well, Lindsay, to your first point, he did say that, but he also has evolved his opinion multiple times since that explosive meeting with Zelensky, at one point saying that he thought Ukraine could win back all of the land that Russia is currently occupying. So the president does change his tune with regard to how he thinks Ukraine can ultimately end this war. But as far as the call goes, what we know so far is that the White House, and just there, President Trump, is not denying that this conversation happened between his special envoy Witkoff and Putin's advisor. And the reason that's problematic is because, according to a transcript that Bloomberg published of the call, it appears as though Witkoff was coaching the Russians on how to get a successful deal with President Trump, who was set to speak with Vladimir Putin in the coming hours and days. And so it's not just Democrats who are sounding off, but Republicans say that what is shown in the transcript, not only about the coaching, but also the substance of what was discussed with regard to what Russia wants and land territories, shows that Witkoff, at least, if not the administration, favors Moscow. And they believe that is a huge problem. In fact, Congressman Don Bacon is even calling for Witkoff to leave the administration, to be dismissed. Obviously, based on what we just heard from the president, that's not going to happen. He defended Witkoff, as did other White House officials.
So Witkoff's going to meet with Putin in Moscow next week. The president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, may also join. What more do we know about the current peace proposal for Ukraine and negotiations?
Well, we know that Ukraine and Russia are not expressing the same level, a high level of optimism that we are hearing from the Trump administration, who is saying that, you know, there are just a few more details to sort out, nothing insurmountable. But when you look at the sticking points that remain, these are not small details. They are conversations about territory, about security guarantees, about Ukraine's long-held wish to join NATO. And so even though all sides do agree, Lindsay, that progress is being made, and we know, as you mentioned, that Witkoff will meet again with Putin sometime next week, along with the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, this is a very delicate time for negotiations because they have to get to the next stage where everybody agrees, everybody is on board. And so far, we have not heard that, Lindsay.
All right, Weijia, Jiang, thank you.